describing four forces of flight. Have you ever thrown a frisbee and wondered how it flies? This is due to the four forces of flight. Aircraft have the same four forces of flight acting upon it, which enables it to fly. Four forces of flight are thrust, drag, weight, and lift. First is thrust. Thrust is a force that moves an object in the direction of motion, created thus by an outside force such as a propeller, a jet engine, and or a jet rocket, or anything that creates a thrust to push an object in the opposite direction. Air is pulled through, then pushed out in the opposite direction. Let me use an example of your basic household fan and a basic grocery bag. As the air comes in through the back, it creates a suction, which is sucking the air in. As you can see, the bag sticks to it. I have to pull it away, and if I let go, it stays. As the air is pulled through, it's created by thrust out the front. If you watch, the bag blows forward due to the thrust. If I let go, the bag blows away, thus creating thrust in the opposite direction. Second is going to be drag. Drag is a force that acts in the opposite direction of the motion. Drag is caused by friction and direction differences in air pressure. This tends to slow the object down. An example of drag would be if you're driving down the highway, roll your window down. You put your hand outside the window, it's going to force your hand back. If you bring it back in, it stays. Put it out, force your hand back. The air blowing by, your hand disrupts that airflow, causing friction, thus putting drag on your hand, which tends to hold your hand back. Third is weight. Weight is a force in which tends to pull an object towards the ground due to gravity. Without weight and gravity, everything would float off into space, and thus the force of weight would not exist. Any example of weight would be an object. If you were to hold it in your hand, let go, the force of gravity is going to pull that weight to the ground. Thus, weight, gravity, it all works together. Lastly is lift, which is the most important. Lift is a force that acts in an upward direction, which holds the aircraft in the air. The airfoil of wing is designed for the air flowing under the wing is going to have more pressure than the air flowing over the wing. Thus, more pressure on the bottom than the top is going to push the aircraft up. An example of lift under your wing, once again, if you're going down the highway, put your hand outside the window. Keep your hand horizontal. You'll notice that your hand does not move up or down. If you were to angle your hand up, that wind is going to hit the bottom of your hand, which is more pressure than going over the top of your hand. You're going to notice your hand will have a force rising up, thus lift. If you were to go down, the force hitting the top is going to be greater than going on the bottom. It's going to force your hand down. Without lift, aircraft will not be able to fly whatsoever. The way the four forces act make the plane do different things. Each force has an opposite force that works against it. Lift works against weight. Thrust works against drag. If all forces are equal, aircraft fly in a level flight. In conclusion, without lift or the four forces of flight, the 10,000s of pounds aircraft you see flying around would not be able to stay in the sky. They would fall and plummet to the earth. Thus, the next time you see an aircraft fly, you will now be able to know how it's able to stay in the air by the four forces of flight acting on an object or aircraft.